everybody. Welcome to the Hidden Gems podcast. And this is a show where we like to dive into a streaming service and give you our recommendations for the hidden gems that you can find on that service. It's a lot of fun. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey, Rachel. It's great to be back with you once again. This is our first taped episode of 2022. We did our first one live, so back to business, if you will.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Man, this month is certainly interesting with the whole turning red business, which boo to all of that, by the way. I don't know what Disney idiot they were thinking of. But I mean, when I read, just to go off on a tangent, when I read that article about how the people at Pixar were just felt really sad at that news, I felt for them because let's not forget, Pixar carried Disney for quite some time. They were making off Home on the Range and Tarzan 2 and a bunch of crap. And they were just doing like, let's show you how it's done. And they were riffing off just classic after classic after classic. I'm just so afraid they're going to turn it into, oh, we've got this Disney Plus, the streaming service now. Pixar, you're just doing stuff for that.
And honestly, I'm not that surprised in a way because we did our preview last week and we only had one thing new to preview on Disney Plus.
Pretty much.
For January, February. One thing, and it was an Ice Age series. And that's pretty crazy.
That's not even going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very skeptical, that's for sure. And so, in a way, I kind of wasn't surprised, but it's just like, what are they thinking? I mean, obviously they're just being very, very short-sighted in taking what they know is a very popular entity of theirs and using it to promote their streaming service. But at a certain point, it's going to start to lose its luster.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do that so many times before people are like, oh, another Disney Plus thing. I don't know.
When Soul got released on Disney Plus, it was understandable. That's when the pandemic was really at all-time highs. So if you're going to release it, obviously do it there. That's cool. Luca was a bit of a coin toss for me. Things were a little better, but still kind of on the weary side of things. But Turning Red, this got like a theater date. Like there's a big poster at my theater. It's not going to last much longer, but there's a big old poster like at my theater now.
Even if you're worried about Omicron, we're talking March.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like almost all of the estimates that I have seen have shown that the peak of that Omicron will be dwindling down by the end of February, from everything that I have read. And it's milder anyway to begin with. People are still obviously going to the theater. Even now, Sing 2 just crossed the 100 million mark. And that didn't have nearly the buzz or the prestige of Turning Red. And then here you have one of the most successful movies ever in Spider-Man. So I don't think it really had that much to do with the Omicron. I think it had to do with the fact that Disney needed programming for Disney Plus. I think that's why more.
Yeah, my boss at my day job is very well connected with the prominent hospitals in my general area in Florida. Yeah. He speaks to them quite regularly, and they say that when Omicron was really like gearing up, they were like, all right, let's just be prepared. They geared up everything, ICUs, ventilators, and they used like 1% of it, maybe 1.5% of it, which, I mean, they shouldn't have been able to use any of it, but if there is a silver lining in the cloud, Omicron is very highly contagious, but not as bad. So it's a head scratcher because...
I mean, that's what the statistics bear out. The most of the increase is coming from pediatric hospitals as far as statistically around the country. And I'm not saying that's like not important. Of course it is. But as far as adults, we have not been seeing the same kind of increases that you saw with the Delta. But anyway, I mean, we're not scientists, but I just think that if you're talking about a release that's in that's in March. I think it was more to do with them not having any original programming. If you think about it, last year we had WandaVision on Disney Plus, which everybody was freaking out about, and getting really invested in. And what do they have this year? Nothing. Yeah. They just had Hawkeye, but that's over.
Pretty much, and they have no MCU related content coming onto there.
There's the Book of Boba Fett, but that's kind of fizzled. Nobody's really talking about that.
Yeah, and even then, it's a limited series. It's only 6 or 7 episodes, so it's not like a Mandalorian length. You can only do so much with it. So I don't know. I guess to put the period at the end of the sentence, it is very frustrating. My heart does go out to the animators. Yeah. They must have worked so hard on it. The director, I believe her name is Dami Shi. I probably butchered that.
Yeah, who did Bao?
Oh, Bao? Oh my goodness. That short is just... I remember... Quick side story. I remember I was watching Incredibles 2 premiere night, and when that short was coming on, I was like, oh, here comes the Pixar short. I was not prepared. It's like this woman makes a dumpling. The dumpling becomes sentient. And at a point when the dumpling complains too much, she just straight up eats the thing. And I'm just like, is the dumpling meant to be your child? And it, of course, it's metaphorical. She's trying to love her son, but her son is growing up. So I get where they were trying to go for, but if you just look at it in a vacuum, this woman made a dumpling child, and when it got to out of control, she just straight up ate it. I can just make another one out of you with
if you had a teenager who hasn't been there, let's think about that. Let's be real.
But I feel bad for Dami Shi. I'm sure she worked very hard on this. So, I don't know. It's a sucky situation, but what can you do?
Well, speaking of coming of age stories, the reason why we decided to pick, I guess you should say first, what are we talking about this week for Hidden Gems?
We're talking about Amazon Prime this week, and that's because Amazon's got a new movie out called The Tender Bar, which we have now both seen.
Yes, and I enjoyed it. If you watched my underrated Movie Nerds Club video, you saw that I had The Tender Bar on my list. It's not perfect, but I thought that it was pretty good coming of age story, and it had a really nice sense of place and time, and you really felt like you were in Boston in the 1970s and experiencing this family and this life. And I thought the Ben Affleck was really good. I mean, Ty Sheridan, I feel like he has never quite won me over. He's done a lot of big projects, but I've never loved him in anything. And I'm sure he's a perfectly awesome person, but just as far as performances, I don't know if he's quite there. And they keep trying to kind of push him as a new next thing. And it's not really working for me, unfortunately, but he was pretty bland in it, so that's a weakness. But overall, I thought it was a pretty sweet coming of age story. What did you think?
I enjoyed it as well. When I was watching it, I remember I recommended Invincible a lifetime ago, the Disney movie about Vince Papale, the football player.
Yeah.
And you were talking about it and how it was just all sepia tone for
that's true.
For 75% of The Tender Bar. I'm like, this is so brown. And now I get that they were trying to capture a certain feeling, and I think they did just fine in that, but I was just sitting there I don't remember cameras shooting footage that brown back in the day.
Yeah.
But overall, I did really enjoy this. Ben Affleck, I've said it before and I'll say it again. When the man is given something he can sink his teeth into, he is really, really good. And he is the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
I liked his relationship with JR. I really felt sorry for JR, especially younger JR, because he the dad in the movie is just awful. You don't promise your son to take him to a baseball game and just play hooky. You just don't do that. And the movie
Although that did somewhat ring true for me, because so my grandfather was a difficult human. He had good qualities about him, He was challenging. I had one that was beloved and the other that was challenging. And one time he promised to take my brother to Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii.
Like
My
the
brother's
state of
probably,
Hawaii, like
yeah,
luau.
yeah, yeah. Like, so my brother's probably 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather gets to the airport with my brother, and there's something wrong with the plane. Something's going on. And he left my brother at the airport. He gave him like money to call my mom and was like, sorry, I can't take you. Here, call your mother.
Wow.
So my brother called my mom and was like, you have to pick me up from the airport.
Oh my God, I
Can
can't.
you imagine?
Wow. And this
Yeah.
is like before all the TSA stuff. So
Yeah.
wow,
I mean, now you'd probably be arrested
pretty
if you
much.
did
Yeah.
something like that for child abandonment or whatever. But anyway, so
But
maybe that's why that didn't seem so crazy to me. But yeah, that was a crazy scene.
yeah, I immediately felt sorry for this kid because it was like,
Yeah.
we'll go to the game, we'll have a lot of fun, and he never shows up. But Ben
Oh,
Affleck was the only one to like call him out. To be like, you got my
yeah.
$30? They're like, you got my $30? And the dad's just like, you need to. And it's like, well, then give me my $30. And they're like, you get your $30, Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, I do think the parts with JR as a little boy were better than the older parts.
Oh yeah, that I can
Yeah.
definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
And Christopher Lloyd is the grandfather here. Christopher Lloyd's having a bit of a renaissance. He was in Nobody last year, and now he's in this. Is like,
And a Hallmark movie.
oh yeah, I did see the trailer for that. I'm like, Christopher Lloyd has been a bit of a Lloydisance, if you will.
Yeah.
He's been everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was a sweet movie. It's not perfect, but I gave it fresh, and it's at 50%. I think it's a shame that it's that low, I guess.
I'd give it in like mid to high 60s,
Yeah.
but that's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if any of you have seen The Tender Bar, or if you read the book, I have the book because Netflix or Amazon, excuse me, sent me the book, but I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet. But it was funny during the holidays with all the when they're all sending stuff. People keep thinking like people think that film critics read more than we do. I keep getting all these books. I mean, I read quite a bit, but most I think don't. That's why they're film critics, not book critics.
And I can't wait till the day when studios send me stuff. It's gonna
Well, and
be
sometimes
happy
my
day.
friend Caitlin, she keeps joking that Netflix keeps sending her self-defense weapons. These huge books. I mean, seriously, like 6 pounds, like huge. I told her, I said, then you can kill someone with cinema.
Death.
Yeah. Anyway, so we each have 5 choices from Amazon Prime that we've enjoyed that we consider hidden gems. And so we're going to talk about those. What is your first one that you want to talk about?
So my first choice is, surprisingly, I would consider a romance movie. It's a biopic, but there's a heavy amount of romance in here. It is The Theory of Everything. This starred Eddie Redmayne. I believe he won an Oscar for this, if my memory serves me right. It stars him and as well as Felicity Jones. And this is the biography of Stephen Hawking. Hopefully we all know who he was. And hopefully we don't know him as just the guy who sounded like this, like the computer voice. He was one of the most smart individuals of the modern time. And the movie talks about how he starts getting his theory of everything, and just when he's about to hit his peak, the Lou Gehrig's disease hits. And the movie is just, it's kind of beautiful in that how it shows just how Felicity Jones's character is so committed to their marriage that she's willing to help her husband with just everything, through literally the best of times and the worst of times. I like that. I like the spirit of that. Um, there's a great scene near the beginning of this when Redmayne and Jones are on a date together and they're looking up at the stars, and he brings up, I can't remember the full scene, but it was something about tide and how like that is like connected to the universe. It's far better if you actually watch it, but it's really quite solid. And I remember going to see this with my mom, and my mom was crying. So if she started crying, then she was really liking it. So I recommend this movie. I really do.
Yeah, it's unusual romance because they actually kind of give each other permission to stray from their marriage, both of them consensually, which is unusual for a marriage, but it is true. That's what happened and what they did. And they do have nice chemistry, I think. Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a little tired by the end. All the twirling got a little gimmicky to me. I got a little tired of it, but I still overall enjoyed the film.
Not as bad as, like, say, Wild Wild West, when they just literally attached a
Yeah,
camera to
fair.
Kenneth Branagh's chair, and they were like, do. Like, we get it. You got camera
Yeah.
tricks. Like,
I mean,
just
I guess when you're talking about these prestige films that are being considered for Oscars, I do hold them up to a pretty high standard. And so I do get maybe a bit more nitpicky, but this one, I mean, I certainly liked it better than Birdman that won in 2014. I can tell you that right now.
not gonna let the Birdman issue go, are you?
No, I am never. Yeah.
It's
All right,
kind
well,
of
well,
like
good.
Salieri and Mozart with the two of you. It's like, from now on, we are enemies.
We are enemies. All right. Well, my first choice is a movie that is flawed. I actually didn't go fresh on it, but like I think that is one benefit of streaming is that you can watch a flawed movie and still kind of get some things out of it. You know
Mhm,
what I'm
mhm.
saying? And so I'm talking about Encounter. This was from last year. And this, particularly the ending, didn't really work for me. The story, it, it has some holes and some things that were frustrating, but I think it's worth a look see, just because it's interesting and it makes interesting choices. I was right on the edge of fresh versus rotten on it. I think the performances are really interesting. Riz Ahmed, Octavia Spencer, the two little boys. And basically, it's this man who believes that his former spouse has been abducted by aliens, and his children are at risk. But then, like as the story goes, you don't know if he is actually like just trying to keep his children away from their mother, or if he's like truly crazy, or if there's like some truth to these alien things, or what's going on. So like it sets up a lot of interesting things. It doesn't really, I don't think 100% pay off, but it's interesting enough, I think, to be worth checking out on streaming.
Is it a spoiler to ask if there are actually aliens?
Well, it's a little bit ambiguous. It leaves it for you to decide of what you think. Who do you
Oh, it's one of those
believe?
endings.
Yeah, and yeah, basically that's kind of the end, but also it's I think you're supposed to believe. It's been a while since I saw it, but I think you're supposed to believe that he is kind of manipulative and crazy, but then like there's still a little bit of ambiguity. I don't know. It's interesting that the way that's why it would be a good one to watch and like talk about with friends and see, what do you think? Do you think he is he's crazy? Do you think, I mean, I think that what's it called? Shoot. It's very similar to the Midnight Special.
That's the one, yeah.
Very, very, very similar the Midnight Special. But I think that Midnight Special was just a little bit more satisfying as far as the ending and things going on. But yeah, so if you like Midnight Special, I think you'll enjoy this. And a lot of people on Letterboxd give it a pretty high score. I gave it a 2.5. So again, I was like right on the edge with it. When I saw it at TIFF, I said, the summary for this film made it seem really gross with evil bugs, but it's not. It's similar to Midnight Special. The acting is good for all involved, but not really sure what it's trying to say. The kids are put in peril a lot. Still, I was engaged throughout. So there you go.
Yeah, Riz Ahmed is slowly becoming like Amazon's favorite actor. He was in like this and Sound of Metal, which Sound of Metal got a lot of awards attention from what I remember.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Sound of Metal was a great film, and that did a really great job. But this one is a little more messy, I would say. But I think worth a watch. What's your next pick?
So my next choice, sticking to the theme of underrated stuff from last year, this is a movie that I put on my underrated movies list from last year. It's The Courier. This starred Benedict Cumberbatch and is based on a true story. It tells the story of an English businessman who was recruited by MI6 to basically spy on the Russians. The thought process being he goes to the Soviet Union quite often. No one looks at him twice, so just give the information to him, tell him where to go, and he should be able to handle his own. Initially, he's like, I'm not a spy. I'm a suit and tie guy. But he initially accepts, and he makes friends with his mark, basically a USSR agent who wants to take his children from there to America. The movie, for the first 2/3, is about their relationship. But what made me really enjoy this movie was the last third. I've seen enough spy movies to kind of have a rough idea of where they're going, and I was like, all right, this is going to be the last con, the big thing to wrap everything up, and they all ride off into the sunset. I'm going to try not to spoil it, but that's not what happens. If you know this story, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but I did not know this story, and so when a certain thing happens, I'm just like, wait, what? And this was like not even at my local theater. It was still closed due to COVID. I was at the local AMC about 20 minutes away, so I had to really go out of my way to go see this, and I am so glad that I did. For the first like hour 45, it is very much like standard operating procedure for spy movies, but that last third, like, it's a hard left, but in the most pleasant way. And again, this is coming from someone who had no idea what the story was, and I just walked out of there just pleasantly surprised at how good it was.
Yeah, I actually saw this movie at Sundance. Let me see, which year did I think it was either 2020 or 2019 that I saw it at Sundance, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite movies. It was called something else back when I saw it at Sundance.
Because I find the whole Cold War period to just be endlessly fascinating. Like, I love a lot of Cold War movies. Like, there's this one called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, starring Gary Oldman, Tom Hardy, Colin Firth, and like a lot of British actors, and that's really good.
Yeah, I saw it. It was called Ironbark back in the day at Sundance. I saw it in 2020 Sundance, and I said, I mean, it had a great performance from Benedict. As I said here, tells the true story of Greville Wynne, an Englishman who was recruited to spy on the Soviets in the year leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's a lot to admire about Ironbark. To start with, the entire cast is great, including Rachel Brosnahan and Jessie Buckley. I also thought the script for most of the film did a good job mixing in moments of humor with more tense sequences. I said towards the end, it loses control of tone and becomes a more grueling experience, but it's still a film that entertains on lots of levels. Overall, this was a very engaging story that's well told. My only problem with Ironbark is at times it becomes a little dry and it started to lose my interest. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it's definitely worth checking out when it comes to a theater near you. So I gave it a 7 out of 10.
That's fair. That I would hover it around that same place.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, cool. That's a good choice. And yeah, Jessie Buckley is in it, who I love.
She's a Hallmarky, right?
No, I wish. No, she was in a movie called Wild Rose that I loved and adored in 2019.
Oh
And
yeah.
I just really think she's great. All right. Well, my next choice is a series on Amazon. It's called With Love. Excuse me. My next choice is a series on Amazon called With Love. And this is it takes a basically like a family story and tells all the different love stories within that family. And it's a Latino family. I forget where it's all set. It's like LA, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, and I thought it was pretty good. I kind of was a little annoyed because I wanted Emerald Tobias' character Lily to end up with this guy Nick, and who I thought she had much better chemistry, and I liked way better than the lead played by Rome Flynn named Santiago. But spoiler alert, they didn't go that way this season, and I was disappointed because like I said, I felt like Santiago was very flat. Like Rome Flynn is extremely good looking, but I just didn't think they had any real chemistry. You also have this relationship between Isis King and Todd Grinnell. She's a Isis King is transgender, and starts this relation. They're both doctor, or she's a nurse, I think, and he's a doctor. But that was a cute relationship. I like Emerald Tobia. She's so beautiful. And then there's their parents' relationship that is kind of in a midlife crisis kind of spot. Constant Marie and the Benito Martinez. And then you have her brother, Lily's brother, Jorge, played by Mark Indelcado, and his boyfriend, Henry, played by Vincent Rodriguez. So anyway, you have all these different relationships, and you're following it for 10 episodes, and there's obviously like tons of diversity and tons of representation, and overall it was an enjoyable watch. I wasn't feeling great, and so it was like a perfect thing to kind of stream and just kind of relax and watch. It's like I said, I was a little frustrated because I really wanted Lily and Nick. So hopefully, if we get a season 2, they'll go that way back, because I thought it was way better. And I feel like from what I'm seeing online is that more people are kind of team Lily and Nick and not team Lily and Santiago. But nevertheless, it's a show to watch.
Did it get canceled, or is there going to be a new season?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think they've said one way or another, but I could be wrong. So I don't know. Let's see if it says anywhere online.
Because it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's been announced yet.
Oh.
Whether they've renewed or canceled. So what's your next?
So my next choice is a movie from 2016, and it is called The Lost City of Zee. This was directed by James Gray, who would go on to direct Ad Astra. It starred Charlie Hunnam. This was my first exposure to Tom Holland, but Tom Holland is in this. And it tells the story of a man named Percy Fawcett. Percy
Your
Fawcett.
story, I think, right?
Yes, and it tells the story of Percy Fawcett, who in the 1920s ventured into the Amazon, which was still widely unknown because he believes that there is a lost city there, conceivably a lost city of gold. And the movie chronicles Percy's various attempts to try and find it. This is a movie that I didn't see in theaters. It was one of those that didn't really come near my area. And so I didn't really think that much of it. But then I saw it on Amazon and I was like, I'll give this a shot. And I actually liked it more than I thought I would. The pacing is a bit slow at times. It's 2 hours and 21 minutes long, and it did not need to be that long, to be completely honest. But I like the ambiance here. I like how 1920s it feels. I like the cinematography. I like the clothing everyone wears. I like Charlie Hunnam. It's weird how long he's been acting. I recently watched Children of Men for a review coming up on my channel, and he's one of the main villains in that. And he's like got dreads and like just thinking to myself, Children of Men came out in 2006. Charlie Hunnam's been around for quite some time. And so it's crazy to think about. Robert Pattinson's in here as well. I mean, he's gone through a bit of a credibility renaissance after Twilight. I mean, he's the Pat Man now. That dude's going to be the biggest thing in 2021. Just you wait. Sienna Miller's in here. Tom Holland, of course. 2016 was a bit of a big year for him. Not only would he be in this, but he would also be in a little movie called Captain America Civil War, where he would take up the Spider-Man mantle that he carries all the way into Spider-Man No Way Home from last year. So I will say that this is very slow at times, but I'm a sucker for these kinds of movies. It's like exploration, kind of period pieces kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is another good movie that has its flaws, but since it's on streaming, definitely worth checking out. And James Gray, he always goes for it. That's what you got to admire about him, is that he never makes a half-baked movie. It's always super ambitious.
That's sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like Zack Snyder in that way. Like they both always go for it, but I think that that he has more my aesthetic, certainly James Gray, than Zack Snyder. But yeah, this movie is too long. It kind of drags, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. It's worth checking out on streaming, I think.
Like, how long can these people be on this boat? Honestly.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, my next pick is an anime pick called Jinro, the Wolf Brigade. And I actually watched this. If you checked out my animated Oscars video that I did on the animated films from 1999, like what would get nominated and what I think would win if they'd had the award, then I talked about this movie in that video. And so that was when I watched it, was for that, when I was preparing for that video. And this really impressed me. I thought it was incredibly beautifully animated. It's kind of a lot. It's hard to explain, but basically it's about a soldier that confronts a girl in this kind of post-apocalyptic kind of world, this dystopian world. And the girl commits suicide. But before she commits suicide, she kind of turns into a wolf. And he doesn't know what to think about that. And it starts him down on this pathway to figuring out this whole, I guess, race of wolves and trying to figure out this suicide girl. And I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really good and beautifully animated. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I think, worth a shot.
That sounds like one of the most anime premises of all time.
Yeah.
A man falls in love with a woman who, before she dies, turns into a wolf.
Well, he doesn't fall in love with her. He's chasing her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chasing.
Yeah. He's chasing her. It's a little girl. he's chasing the little girl or young lady, and before she commits suicide, he sees this wolf, and he's like, "What is this wolf?" Yeah.
It's weird. Last year I watched all of the Studio Ghibli output minus Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, and the Red Turtle. The rights issues on those are a little all over the place. But
those are good ones, though.
I have seen Nausicaa, and that was very good. But my appetite has been kind of piqued for anime like movies because I reviewed Akira last year, and that movie was
Yeah.
it was very good, but it was like like what is going on here?
This is kind of along those sort of Kira dystopian kind of lines. Ghost in the Shell, Akira, this kind of that. Except for this just has, I mean, all three of those have really distinct aesthetics, and this is very dark. I liked it. I thought it was good. I really did.
Definitely sounds like something up my alley.
Yeah, they say the summary: a member of an elite paramilitary counterterrorism unit becomes traumatized after witnessing the suicide bombing of a young girl and is forced to undergo retraining. However, unbeknownst to him, he becomes a key player in a dispute between rival police divisions as he finds himself increasingly involved with the sister of the girl he saw die.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
I just have one thing to say. Oh, Japan.
So, what's your next pick?
So my next choice is a TV show, and back when I was younger, I used to watch the History Channel quite a bit. I started watching Vikings when it first started airing, and I fell in love with that show. And I kind of started to get involved with a lot of the other shows that it had. And
before you continue on, so there's the show Ghosts. Have you heard about it? Ghosts,
like Ghost Hunters?
No, it's on, I think, CBS. It's the show Ghosts, and these people move into this house where there's all these ghosts, and one of them starts being able to see the ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty funny. And I guess there's a British version too that's also funny. Anyway, just made me think of it because there's Thor is in the house, this particular version of Thor, and he loves Vikings on the History Channel.
Wow.
He's like, I'll only let you live if you let me watch Vikings.
I must watch Ragnar.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's cool. Anyway, so I started watching Vikings on History Channel, and I just fell in love with the other shows. There was one called Top Shot that I believe I recommended once upon a time on this podcast. If I didn't, remind me to the next time around. But Top Shot, America, the Story of Us, which I know I've recommended. Mankind, the Story of All of Us, which I've also recommended. And of course, I eventually fell down the Pawn Stars rabbit hole. And Pawn Stars got so big that they did splinter shows. And this what I'm recommending is one of those splinter shows. It's called Counting Cars. I love like old muscle cars. Like sometimes if I'm in the area, I like to go to like a car show, and I like to see like old Mustangs and Chargers and El Caminos. Like I love seeing like 50s, 60s, 70s era cars. And this show is kind of basically about restoring cars. And this shop, they take commissions and they turn hunks of junk into like these beautiful machines. And of course it's a reality TV show that there's like the forced, we got to meet the deadline or else we're not going to make it. And there's stuff like that. There's the colorful characters and other things. There's the one who is always berating the owner, like, you paid too much for that. And the owner's like, hey, I'm absorbing the cost here. You're not. So, like, just listen to me once in a while, will you? But I don't know why. I love, I guess my love of these kinds of cars just drew me into this show. And so I do recommend it. It's kind of like potato chip TV. You don't really think about it too much, but seeing something just like all rusted out and like barely drivable to like just a work of art is very satisfying.
Yeah, I definitely had my era where I was watching those shows, like whether it was County Cars or American Pickers or
Oh yeah,
just like that whole sort of era of those shows. I haven't watched them for a while, but they were fun.
they would cross over sometimes. Like the
Hmm.
pickers would come into the pawn shop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They did Cajun Pawn Stars, but let's not talk about that. Certainly, Rick Harrison wouldn't want to.
Well, I might have talked about my next pick before. I've kind of lost track. It wasn't on the letterboxed, but I feel like I've talked to you about it somewhere. It's the greatness that is Snowman's.
This is
And
certainly my first time hearing
oh,
about
okay.
this. So.
I guess I haven't then. Well, Snowman's is very memorable for me for Hallmarkies podcast because it came out in 2017 when we were just getting started, and it was on the Ion channel. And when we were doing our preview, we previewed a couple Ion things, and they tend to pick things that are a little bit edgier. They don't have a ton of budget, and in this case, this was on Ion channel, and my co-host at the time, Amber, she saw it and she just loved it. And she was like, Rachel, you got to watch Snowman's. So I watched Snowman's, and she was like, we need to have an emergency episode of the podcast. And so we had an emergency episode of Hallmarkies podcast, and the star, Jesse Hutch, he happened to hear the podcast and he liked it. Again, we had only done like maybe 20 episodes at that point. Like we were just starting. And anyway, he liked it and he posted about it on his social media. And he was like, these girls are awesome. They're so funny and blah, blah, blah. And so then he ended up coming on our podcast and he was hilarious. And I don't know, it's just very memorable to me for that reason. But it was also just like so still actually really good. And we just did it for on friendship episodes. I just rewatched it this last cycle, and we had so much fun and with it. And it's about Jesse Hutch plays this snowman that comes to life, and this girl, she every year with her BFF, who's obviously in love with her, but she doesn't realize it. This girl and her BFF make a snowman every year. It's their tradition. And one year she's making a wish on the snowman, and of course then the snowman comes to life, and it is just really funny. There's one scene where he's coming in, and I don't know why snowman equals like liking sort of Scandinavian food, but nevertheless he comes in and he brings like all of this like salted cod and stuff like that into the work, and he's like, this is great food, you got to eat it. And of course he gets like super hot in cold weather, and so he's like taking off his shirt and like, oh, it's so hot. And I don't know, it's just really good. I very much enjoy it. So if you haven't seen it and you want to laugh, I think it's a good one.
So it's safe to say if it wasn't for Snowman's, then Hallmarkies wouldn't be as long as it is, nearly like
I don't know, because we ended up having Jesse was probably like our third or fourth celebrity interview that we had. He was one of the early ones, and it certainly was a very memorable event in the podcast. And it was also funny because when we were talking a couple of episodes later, there was a movie with Adam Hertig who played the BFF. And I said in the podcast, I said, look, it's our friend Adam Hertig, meaning like that's just kind of what you say on podcasts, like people that you like or people it's our friend or whatever. And meaning he's been in movies that we like. And Amber was like, what? He's not our friend? And I was like, sure, he's our friend. How rude. And we went back and forth. And then he heard about it, Adam Hertig, and he was posting on Twitter like, how dare you, Amber? And so anyway, it just has a ton of memories packed into Snowman's, but it's also legitimately funny and worth watching.
Yeah, you should have him back on and say, hey, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here.
I've actually just been emailing him, ironically. Maybe that's part of the reason why I thought of this. but we may have him on in the next 2 weeks. So very excited. Jesse Hatch, not Adam Hertak. Although Adam, we'd love to have you on if you're listening. Our friend. So there you go. That's Snowman's. It's great. So what's your next?
So my final pick is another reality show, and I had to. This was another one where I was like, have I recommended this before? And I didn't see it again on the letterbox, so I was like, I'm just going to recommend it anyway. The British version of Top Gear, and this was falling along the same lines of my car phase, I guess. And I was just kind of looking for car shows, and when the American version of Top Gear premiered on History Channel, I was like, and when I heard, oh, there's a British version, I'm like, okay, I'll look it up. And so I did, and I fell in love with it. And it's really, the show really is about the three main co-hosts just testing cars for an hour or however long the episode is. But it's the chemistry between the three that really makes you like, you come for the cars, but you stay for the three hosts. I can't think of all three, but I know Jeremy Clarkson's one of them and James May's the other one of them. I think the other one's named Brian. I'm having a brain fart at the minute, but I love all three of them, and they're actually still together. They're actually doing the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime, if my memory serves me right, if it's still going.
Is it the American version or the US version?
The UK version.
UK, yeah.
Yeah, and they have the Stig, and he always did the test drive in the reasonably priced car, and they would have the celebrities do the test drive in there as well. That was a lot of fun. Strangely, in like one of the earlier seasons, they had Boris Johnson on there before he would become the UK Prime Minister. It was like, oh, and from the Conservative Party, here is Boris Johnson. I'm like,
oh, really?
What year was this?
That's interesting.
It was like 2006 or 7, a similar time. But but they actually did several specials, like a Burma special and a Polar special and a US special. They did all of that as well. But like I said, the appeal of the show is the dynamic that the three main co-hosts have, because they all secretly try to outdo each other, and they try and pull like tricks on one another, and just trying to one up each other is more than half of what makes the show a lot of fun. So there are a lot of seasons, so I should forewarn everybody, but start from the beginning and work your way forward. It's really is a lot of fun.
Yeah, very good. Sometimes you just need shows like that you can just, that aren't challenging, and you just kind of want to watch. Just, you don't even want to have to worry about a plot. You just want to watch something.
Yeah, that's why I want to thank whoever decided to upload all of Kitchen Nightmares and all of Hell's Kitchen onto YouTube for free, because whoever that person was, they deserved a raise, because they did it literally before COVID hit. But then when COVID hit, I was just like, sure, I'll watch Hell's Kitchen, and I got addicted.
For me, that's like Beat Bobby Flay. That's kind of my show of just like,
that's a good show.
Turn it on. We should do another Discovery Plus episode one of these days.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, that's like loaded. So my last recommendation is another Christmas movie, but this was from 2019. It's called Feast of the Seven Fishes, and this is set in the 1980s, I believe. And it's kind of a slice of life film. It feels kind of Richard Linklater-ish. And it's about a family, and it's just following their various members of the family over Christmas Eve, and all the different things that happen as they're preparing the Feast of the Seven Fishes, which is a tradition amongst Italian Americans. And it's Feast of the Seven Fishes is a romantic comedy set in a Rust Belt town on the banks of the Monongahela River in 1983, when a nice working-class Italian-American Catholic boy brings an affluent Ivy League Protestant girl to his family's raucous traditional seafood feast on Christmas Eve, and sparks fly. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like. It doesn't have like a ton of plot. It's more about the characters and them and their experiences on this day. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and it's something a little bit different. If you want something that's got like a little more sarcasm, is a little bit less cutesy compared to Hallmark or Lifetime, then this would be a good, I think, choice. And this is one that I think if you were looking for something that maybe would be both men and women would both like equally, this would be, I think, a pretty good choice. But anyway, I just enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, solid little Christmas movie.
Yeah, I remember going to Ireland thinking, I went to Ireland in 2016. I was like, what's the deal with the whole Catholic Protestant thing? Like, it's just, we're worshiping the same God. What's happening here?
Well, and this is Italy, but yeah, same dynamic.
And then it was there as like, oh, they take it super duper seriously over there.
Yeah. If you want a good, another good example, it's not on Amazon Prime, but of that feud is watch Dairy Girls, Derry.
Yeah, you recommended that a long time ago as well.
So good. But that's a huge dynamic of that show, is the Protestant versus Catholic divisions in the 90s in Ireland. Really good. Anyway, that's my last choice. So therefore we did it. Let us know what you have been watching on Amazon Prime. If you found any good stuff over there, we would love to hear your thoughts. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. And there is, of course, my YouTube channel, which is just called Ryan Cam. I recently hit 194 subscribers. I am 6 away from the big 200. So if you haven't checked me out, please do. I recently reviewed the 355. It was kind of there for me, but I'm going to be seeing the new Mamoru Hosoda movie Belle, and I will have a review up for that. The second episode of my new podcast with Jacob Martin, Life in the Movies with Ryan and Jacob, is going to be dropping, or has already dropped by the time this airs on Wednesday. Going to be talking about the Flash movie coming out in November, and rumors that it's going to erase the Snyderverse. So that's going to be fun. And then elsewhere, I'm actually doing a review show with the Suit Up Geeks podcast for every episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So that's been so much fun to do. And I'm also a part of their Oscars draft, which I believe will be on the 15th. Matt Neglia from Next Best Picture is going to be a part of that, so I think I'm pretty much screwed. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be working with Deebs and Lowe, Amanda, and Ryan O'Toole, and a bunch of my favorite people on this. I mean, Rachel, you're obviously number one to me, but I've got several favorites. So yeah. I'm doing a lot of stuff. If you haven't checked me out, I suggest you follow me on my social media. I'll be promoting it as much as I can.
Yes, you also definitely check it out. And this month we have Barbie month over on Family Movie Nights. Make sure you're taking a look at that. And on Hallmark's podcast, we're doing our end of the year videos and having a lot of fun our episodes. So make sure you check out over there. And just keep it kind of busy. I had a cold, still like a teeny tiny bit of it hanging on there. Don't worry, not COVID, got tested. So I've been kind of relaxing and trying to get better. But a lot of good stuff still happening. We had my episode on 2021 animation with Animat this week. We have my ranking of Disney films period with Stanford, which is for 2021. That's coming up. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Also this week, recording the female film critics panel this month. It's just my friends and I all talking about Tick, Tick, Boom, because we all loved it so much. So that's going to be fun. Something a little different that we haven't done for that series. So lots of good stuff coming up. And if you have any suggestions of what we should talk about for Hidden Gems, please let us know in the comments section. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.